We all understand the type of climate that we're dealing with. We're dealing with multiple offer situations.
I'd love to know sort of what's your why? What makes you tick? Why are you so successful?
Have a dialogue with your lawyer. Have a dialogue with your agent.
Both sort of passionate about sort of what we do.
Again, vet your agent to make sure that they're experienced and they're local. I like that idea.
No excuse to miss it on Saturdays from 8 to 9.
That's right.
WBZ.
And now, the show that gives you the latest and most relevant housing market news. Real Estate Radio Boston with financial expert Rick Shearer and legal professional Ali Alavi.
We're seeing a trend where I think associations want to take certain measures to be able to add additional security to their complexes. Tell us about some of the challenges that may be associated with implementing those. Are there lines that may be crossed? What are some of the issues that a board needs to be aware of in order to be able to implement those? I'm talking about like camera systems, security systems, those types of things.
One of the biggest problems, as far as I can see, is that associations do not have police powers. Mm-hmm. They have, even if they hire a security guard, the security guard usually has no authority to touch someone or arrest someone or do anything other than call the police. When you set up cameras and so forth, if you start advertising yourself as having security, you might give people a false impression that they are secure, and then if something untoward happens, the association might find liability. There was an old case in California where they put up cameras and things like that and told people that they had security. Some person came across an empty field, broke into a house, and raped someone. And that person had been given a false sense of security and sued the association and won.
Because no one's monitoring those cameras, right? It's just maybe you can identify someone after something.
But even if they are.
There's also another issue. And this is a little bit more helpful to associations and to boards. There's a very famous case in Massachusetts where the court said when a unit owner made a complaint after something adverse happened to her and they made a complaint to the board that they didn't do enough to protect her, they said, wait a minute, you have the ability to protect yourself. Don't come to us. If you had, don't come to us to complain. Had you come to us and said you had a concern and you could put up and asked for bars in your window, we would have said yes. So it's a balancing. You can't. The board isn't mommy and papa. They're not. So is it a situation that the unit owner has the capability in and of himself? Can they put in their own alarm system within the house? There are things that they can do.
So are you saying that if someone comes to an association and says, I don't feel safe, I'm on the first floor, I'd like to put bars on the window or some sort of security, and the association says no, is there potential liability there?
Look, at the end of the day, as I'm always saying, people are going to sue the board no matter what. Right. That's the unfortunate reality of life in condominiums, and as we know, life in Massachusetts. People are very litigious. Whether or not the board would have any responsibility or liability is really going to depend on the facts. Is it a high crime neighborhood? Has there been a lot of reports of break-ins in the area? Was the board aware of the break-ins? Were there break-ins in the... There's so many facts that go into determining whether or not the board's responsible.
And you're not an alarmist, which is great. I mean, you tell it the way it is.
It's good bedside manner. If you can explain something bad in a good way or an understandable way, that takes away a lot of that fear out of the things.
Rick and I have had our homes, going a little over 3 years. We are in the same neighborhood. We take particular pride in our homes. We maintain it well, so on and so forth. And not everybody is of the same mindset. I mean, when you walk into a particular home inspection, what are some of the telltale signs that you look at in a home that says, this is a well-maintained home, versus what are some of the signs that says, no, this is not a well-maintained home?
Other than just, the basic things you see outside, has it been painted recently? Have they been keeping up with grading and, the basic things that you want to do around a house to make sure that you're preventing issues from happening, water issues, bug issues, that type of stuff. Little things like cleanliness. I mean, if you go down into a basement for a home inspection and there's an inch of dust on your heating or cooling system, it hasn't been touched by a professional in years. So then that's not giving you any sort of sense that they have maintained things. So if they're not maintaining a device that costs $5,000 to $10,000, what else are they not maintaining? So just even going down and spending an hour cleaning your basement, vacuuming things, even if you haven't done it in the past 10 years, get it done before the inspection. It'll definitely show up.
And
that
not
it's been
even
maintained.
that, get it done before the open house.
Absolutely.
Because again, the reason why we ask you all these questions now is we're trying to get to the consumer before they get into a home. So if I'm a consumer looking to buy a property, what you just gave me was valuable, because now when I go into an open house, I'm looking at that heating system. I might swipe my finger on it to see if it's been, the dust has been there. Is there rot? All that kind of stuff. So, I love that.
Most people, when they're going through the house, they do the typical. They walk up, the house looks good, it's got good curb appeal. Then they go inside and look at the living spaces. Most people never go down into the basement to look at the heating systems, because if something looks older to a novice, it's definitely an old system. No one ever goes up into the attic unless it's a walk up, or even pokes their head up there, and that's usually where you find mold and stuff like that happening. And those are all areas that you should really be looking at. The living space is great, that's what's selling you on the house, but your big ticket items are everything that you have down in the basement or up in the attic or exterior.
Yeah, speaking of big ticket items, what are you seeing is some of the number one things that are making or having people walk away from transactions right now?
The bigger ticket items are usually the things that always fall on people: heating systems, cooling systems. We have to operate underneath statistics, so we have to give a range for what the life expectancy is off of the manufacturers of equipment. So something could be doing absolutely fine, looks great, been tuned up, but it's past manufacturer life expectancy. So we have to list it as a fully depreciated item. If you don't explain it properly to the person, then they see fully depreciated in the report, they think it's broken, and they have to replace it right away.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that's the case,
No,
though, right? I mean, if it was perfectly maintained, it could go on for another 10, 15, 20 years, or it could break tomorrow.
Correct. That's why we have to let them know that it is fully depreciated for exactly that purpose. It could go tomorrow. It could go another 10 years. And we try to explain to people, statistics are just that. Something lived really long, something died really short, and then you've got that nice average. So it doesn't mean, you're not going to be on that higher end, especially if it's been maintained.
But I would ask a homeowner or a buyer's agent to actually ask the seller or the listing agent for the report, the maintenance report of the heating system, of the AC system. I think that adds additional confidence to a first-time home buyer or any home buyer that you've actually taken care of these systems, and there may be lesser risk than you think.
But I also want to bring up the fact that even if it's on its last legs, it doesn't necessarily mean you should walk away from it. We talk about on the show, one of the contributors is Mass Save. I mean, they have these phenomenal programs where you can listen. I walk into a house and there's a 40-year-old burner there. Even if it's working perfectly fine, guess what? As a home buyer, I probably want to get that replaced, because I'm probably going to burn a heck of a lot of money because it's not efficient.
Good point.
So go over to Mass Save, get an interest-free loan for 7 years, and get a brand new one. That's going to save you so much less money.
There's a growing concern with regards to how much fraud is actually happening in our industry.
Yeah.
And we wanted to dedicate this segment to be able to educate the listeners, buyers, real estate agents, lenders out there, so they don't fall victim to this fraud. Doesn't necessarily have to be in this industry. It's outside of this industry as well. Just a broad rule of thumb.
Follow your gut.
If it smells, shy away from it. This whole notion of the fact that the IRS is going to call you so you can provide them your personal information because of a particular glitch or a particular issue with your tax returns. IRS does not call you. If they're telling you they're IRS and they're calling you on your phone, home phone, cell phone, that is a fraudulent activity. They're trying to take advantage of you. It's a predatory practice. Hang up the phone.
Right. And call the police. Fill a police report as well. Now, there's a lot of things, because technology is getting so crazy and people are relying on it a lot. They're picking up the phone and verifying and calling. They're just relying on emails. What you talked about is there's a lot of scammers that are actually getting into people's email addresses, maybe not even on the attorney's side, but on the real estate agent side, because if a real estate agent is using their work email, it's typically around a transaction. And it's not as secure as maybe yours is. Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about what's happening. Scammers are dialing into real estate agents' emails and getting what information and doing what with it.
Right. So this one is particularly new. This one is about a week and a half old. We got the warning notices with regards to what was happening. And so essentially the hackers had hacked into the system of the real estate agent and also also the attorney's side. They knew what the property address was, or they know what the property address is. They know what the attorney's law firm name is. They know who the real estate agent is. And so they would call the consumer a few weeks prior to the closing, during the pendency of the transaction, and they would ask the consumer to pay for the attorney's services, for title services or negotiation of the purchase and sale agreement, and they asked for the payment to be made with their credit card. And so the consumers are falling victim to the scam because a lot of the different elements of it fall in place. The property address matches, the attorney's office matches, the real estate agent matches. So they feel like, hey, this is legitimate.
Yeah, right.
And so they're giving their credit card over the phone, and their credit cards are being charged. I can tell you that in my 16 years of having done this, we have never used credit card as a form of payment. I find it unusual for credit cards to be used on the attorney's side for a form of payment. So if you're getting a call from an attorney's office because they're asking you to make payment of their services by credit card, I suggest you hang up the phone and call back the law firm.